Okay, so let's see. Just to, I guess, recap, because it wasn't that long ago, it seems forever ago. We had the new moon solar eclipse on March 29th. So this is a 6-month window. The energies really moving through is, a potentiality to experience this solar flash, full disclosure, and a changeover to the quantum financial system in the next 6 months. The Sabian symbol that was birthed with the new moon is a teacher gives new symbolic forms to traditional images. So this is all about action and transformation and leadership and new beginnings. Really just supporting the whole process of all of these new beginnings happening. And then also that was, we had Alganeb, which is a Pegasus star. It's a Pegasus gate of returning home. There was also the whale star that David was speaking about. And that one was Alpha Lacertae. And it's a whale initiating pathway of the humans. It's a pathway of recognitions, acknowledgement, choices, and decisions. March 30th, Neptune entered Aries. So Neptune will enter Aries now until 2039. So this is all about divine timing, the spiritual warrior, liberation, and a graduation. Or ascension, even, if we want to look at it like that. So I found it interesting. The last time Neptune was in Aries was in 1861. And so that was the era of the Civil War, supposedly. That's what we were taught and told. I believe it was a giant hoax connected to the mud flood and reset and Tartaria. So there's lots of information out there. If anybody, this is all just kind of, planting seeds. And if anything, resonates with you, then you could look further into these topics and whatnot. But also what I found interesting was in 1859, there was the Carrington event as well. So we have seen an upsurge with solar activity. We are in solar maximum now. April 4th, there's a Saturn sextile Uranus. This is a harmonizing aspect. It will also touch on the planets Venus, Mercury, and Mars. So this particular alignment, this connects back to the spring of last year. I think it was around April or May-ish, and that's when we really got charged with all of this solar activity, and we really saw an uptick in all of that. There was a bunch of solar flares at that time. And Uranus has been conjunct, or it's been in Taurus for a while, and it was conjunct Rutabach, which is another Pegasus star. So this was all an activation in the spring of 2023. And it's also signifying an ending of a 30-year cycle. So this ending of the cycle brings with it sudden changes and creative openings. Coming to April 7th, which is today, we have Mercury going direct, and then we have the Mannanan conjunct Neptune. And then on April 12th, which brings us to the full moon, 23 Libra, we also have Venus stationing direct that day. So this is a fascinating alignment here. So high vibrational. So we have the full moon in Libra conjunct Spica. So this is an angel and whale star. Spica is the cradle of the angels, and it brings in the energies of collective joy, devotion, faith, victory, and perfection of the light. So this is a return to our angelic nature. The angel completes its mission and steps out of the belly of the whale. Redemption. The full moon is also conjunct Arcturus. This is the male serpent in the stellar nations. Keeper of the Bears, Mesocheck order, and the Christ consciousness. This is a gate of rebirth, ascension, and transfiguration. So that's already like so fascinating in itself. And then we have this opposite, the Chiron Kazemi, which is 22 Aries. So 22 Aries is conjunct Baton Katos, which is in the Cetus constellation. And this is another whale star. So this star is known as the Hall of Mirrors, or a type of prison. Cetus and then Corvus, which is part of the bird nation, they're both part of the celestial prison. But these Hall of Mirrors, it represents a redemption for fallen souls. And the higher vibrational tone of the whale, the killer whale, let's say, is the celestial orca. And this represents galactic law and a protective warrior energy against shadow forces. And so this information was from the Stellar Nations as well, where the shadow forces felt threatened by the celestial orca and basically went in and did a gene manipulation to them, which was a type of black magic similar to what they used in Atlantis. And they turned the orcas into predators, so that the orcas then turned on their brethren. So, and they used a microchip technology to do this. So this sounds like so familiar to what's happening now. It's pretty wild. The exit of this prison is the star Deneb Ketos, which is 2 Aries. This is a bridge to ascension and redemption. Now, this is where Venus, Mercury, and Saturn recently rebirthed. And so this really is bringing in the energy of the rebirth of Chiron, the great felines, Andromeda galaxy, the potential redemption for all fallen souls. Chiron and Aries, Chiron entered Aries in 2018 and will remain there until 2027. So if we look back, 7 years ago to 2018, that was when there was a huge activation at that point, and then just everything that has transpired since then, how we've evolved. So Chiron is all about wounding, healing, teaching, and mastery. And this is the birth of the shaman of creation. So fascinating that we're celebrating the white wizard today. So I'll pause there. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina, for all of that. So bless you, everybody. We seem to be making some progress here on the screen. It seems like a bunch of the software got frozen. So bless you all for bearing with us. So I'm just going to cycle through a few here. We have the Chiron Kazemi chart. So if any of you want to take any screenshots or anything like this, then please use this opportunity. So thank you, Gina, for just holding the space whilst we tried to work through all of those bits and pieces. This is still very new for us, and it will probably take 1 or 2 attempts. But please, any of you who have any questions in the chat box, please do pop them there. So this whole piece that Gina just gave us the heads up for moving towards the 12th and the 13th is really important, because it's actually the culmination of many things. Now, Leslie's not been able to join us today, but me and Leslie are hoping to put together a special little Cosmic History Codes update in the next couple of days to look at the stars getting activated. But what we can say is, if we go back to April the 8th, of last year, when we had that really, really powerful eclipse that many of us felt was really the beginning of the new process, it's also when we had that Chiron Kazemi. So Gina, do you have any thoughts about that, sister, about how we're looping from that April the 8th Chiron Kazemi on that full moon eclipse? I think it was a solar eclipse actually, to this Chiron Kazemi on this particular full moon in Libra.
Yeah, well, it profoundly feels like we moved through another space. So there's been an acceleration, but almost like an opening. And so it seems, and feels a lot like that was like the beginning. Like there was, this almost like this explosion of light happening, if we want to say some type of flash that happened last year around that time. And then now the integration of all of those energies and now kind of moving beyond that. Um, yeah.
Right.
So,
I mean,
yeah.
there are so many things to consider about this particular wave spell in this week, and perhaps just to bring things back into the energy of today and how this is all unfolding over the next 13 days. You know, we just had a very powerful entry point into this new Zolkin with the dragon, and our major aim with what we're trying to do, both with QPW and now this more sort of almost daily unfolding, we can say, with what we're trying to do here starting today, is to give the picture and of what's coming towards us. Because the more that we start to work this way, and in fact Leslie was just messaging me about this yesterday, because of the fusion of the Mayan time and the stellar nations, we can actually start to look forward into the incoming wave spells and even the incoming castles, and start to feel the unfolding and the flow of the energy as we move from one wave spell to the next. And it's so interesting to be able to factor in the stellar nations and understand the rebuilding of a very fractured relationship between the draconian beings, the great feline beings, and understanding now how the dragons and the cats weren't to work together. So the dragons did their job. We got hit with that full broadside of the plasma from the sun. And that was literally happening as that wave of dragon energy was sweeping across the planet, from our brothers and sisters in New Zealand to, of course, our sister Ashley in Hawaii. And so it's interesting today with the sort of the financial markets basically doing much the same thing, because of course the first markets that open are Australia, New Zealand, Japan, China. And so whatever wave of, in this case, maybe sort of impending financial collapse is happening, it's also going to happen in the wave with the time zones, right? Because that's how we're set up currently on the planet. And so as we moved from the dragon yesterday, sort of with the magic number 13, which is really calling in the energy of the cat, that's one of the really beautiful things. Once you start to read into the stories of how one glyph, in this case the Skywalker glyph yesterday, with the energy of 13, of the goddess, and particularly the great felines that protect the goddess and protect free will, we then move into a whole wave spell of basically Jaguar, shamanic energy. And so what that has been suggesting to us really is that this is the time that we all go inwards really and communicate and operate from our inner Jaguar selves, our inner shamanic ability to alchemize whatever comes to us, whether it's individual, environmental, maybe even collective. And of course we have this sort of impending meeting as Chiron goes through another death and rebirth process. Every time there's a Kazemi, it's a death and rebirth process for either the planets or the asteroids. And so this suggests that whatever was being initiated last year on that Chiron Kazemi, on that eclipse, is now coming up for its final review. And of course, as you've already pointed out, Gina, that Kazemi is again happening on the so-called Hall of Mirrors star Beta Catos. So do you have anything in response to that, Gina, as we kind of pull the pieces together and unfold how the next 13 days looks? And then, after the Jaguar, we also then have the Blue Hand, and then we have the Yellow Warrior. So the more that we get to know these different kins and how they can shape a wave spell and what the overall direction is, we can start to feel into the wave spells coming and start to see how the whole Telectanon 1320 time wave technology actually unfolds a story by itself.
Yeah, so the Hall of Prison, anyway, so this is conjunct my nodes. And so we each have our own personal experience of what, our wounding is, and our experience, our dance basically with our own shadow and all of that. But this is speaking to the collective energy now. So I believe it's speaking to, the prison planet that we've been living on, if you want to, the matrix and whatnot. And, having a chance to, now that we've moved through our wounding, Chiron, right? And really looked at all of our shadows and found acceptance with that. And again, moving through our wounding, pain, and shadow and all of that, that's where we come into our gift. So a lot of this, I know for me, it was like coming into the acceptance of my gift. And so a lot of this, I think for many of us who were, involved more intimately with some of these energetics and stars and that, it was all around magic, and the misuse of magic and whatnot. Whether we were, we kind of sidestepped and, went another direction, a fallen type of aspect of ourselves, or whether, we basically were corrupted and forced to have to, use dark magic in order to survive, basically. So there was a lot of emotion, I believe, intertwined with all of that, shame and guilt being huge, and then anger and resentment and all of this. So I think from processing that and then just coming to a place where we finally come to acceptance and peace with our path that we chose and why we needed to experience certain things in this life, and if we have memories that we've gathered from our other parts of our multidimensional experience, now we can integrate those and come back into our magical self, be the shaman of creation that we always were, and being more responsible now and grounded in our presence and magic with all of that.
Right, exactly. Bella, do you wish to add anything at this point about the energy of the Jaguar or the unfolding of the cat energy? Anything to add to what we shared in the quantum compass and how you see this sort of looping from even the path of the Jaguar next year? I'll put you on the spot there so I can give you a few minutes to think about it. Go on.
More than anything, I want to share that this for us is a return to the path of the Jaguar from the last cycle, the last Solkin, where I was asked by the guides to go back to Mexico, even though David wasn't fully recovered. He was not walking, still on the wheelchair and that. But that it was a big mission because time needed to be reset. And there was only that window of time, that window of opportunity when Saturn was obscured. It was eclipsed only on that day, which was the day out of time. So we had to make it all the way to Teotihuacan in Mexico, which is the place where men become gods, meaning it's the place where we achieve enlightenment if we are prepared for it and we're ready to do the work. So we had to do that, at the same time reconnect part of the grid that is in Mexico, which I think is part of the whole machinery that is allowing us to go back into universal time. I think that is part of the job or the mission, the task that was very strongly requested from us in the last Solkin. And we were starting on the day of today, which is day 1 of the White Wizard or the Jaguar. And for 13 days, we had to go and do this work. So I think it's very relevant that after lots of people for the last 260 days have done the activations and have done the reconnection to their glyphs, the following of the wave spells, now many more can access this new grid of the new time. I think that's the biggest importance.
You're right. Yeah, thank you, Bella, for sharing that. And if we think about the last 260 days, and we also just think about all of the energy and effort that we've been putting in as a tribe over the last 3 months, what that's really been doing is anchoring and solidifying many things. I tuned into the flying school the other day and realized that what we have managed to do in a very short space of time is actually create something that in the future will be famous. It will be famous as being one of the first flying schools where the first cosmic humans start out on their initiatory paths. Right now, there's just a handful of us doing that. But when we're able to feel into the future and particularly have that communication with, we can say perhaps what we might perceive as our future cosmic human selves, then because we've created in this moment the potentiality for that to happen, in true Marty McFly, Doc, Back to the Future style, we're able then to have communication with those beings, those aspects of ourselves that we've kind of literally just given birth to. If we decided, if we hadn't done that, then that timeline wouldn't open. And so what I've been understanding over the last few months is that in this moment of initiations and initiatory points, what we create now has a direct relevance and bearing on how the future is actually going to come towards us. But if we don't take those actions now, then we don't open those timelines. So in this case, it's about a mystery school, the flying school. But if we hadn't come together and a group of us done all of the stuff that we've been doing, we wouldn't have created the energetic connections at the soul level and the higher self level for that then to become a thing in the future. So that's just something for us all to think about. And I've only really seen that coming into being in the last couple of months since that process happened. But as a tribe, we've been doing that since we activated the Mayan glyph map. And then, of course, that came into really powerful bearing when we activated the dragon lines at the beginning of the last wave spell. So this is really what a lot of what me and Bella have been wanting to share, and now starting to see the more positive results, because you guys, all of our tribe, have been giving your energy and your awareness to it. And that's really what all of this needs. It needs dynamic, kinetic awareness and participation. And, this is actually, we were talking about this morning, and that's one of the areas where I currently see that we're a little bit stuck as humanity. It hasn't dawned on the masses yet that it's not the people on the TV that are making the decisions. It's not them deciding about how all of this plays out. It's actually us. And what we can see sometimes is that without that full spectrum of quantum awareness from a large part of the population, sometimes the narrative that is being presented to us through the goggle box starts to unravel itself, primarily because the collective is not giving attention to it. This is what we've been sharing about universal time. If we switch off for a couple of days, things get all flimsy and wibbly wobbly and nothing happens because nobody's giving attention. The trick to the universal time flow is that we're always in a place of intention and awareness. And so we're always, some part of us is always giving feedback or overviews to the collective gestalt. In the old days, we were given 2 days off every week where we didn't have to think about everything, which didn't make any difference to the overall universal flow because we weren't operating, and that we were operating under somebody else's container system, the so-called 1260. But with the shifting of the energy from day 12 to day 13 over the weekend, and then from the end of that wave spell yesterday, with the energy of the Skywalker, the cosmic Skywalker, bringing heaven on earth, but most of all in service to the goddess. And it just so happens I have that glyph, so I've been able to live that. But there are other cosmic Skywalkers out there able to do the same thing. But once we're able to feel into the essence of what our glyph is, we understand part of our mission code is to be able to bring that into some kind of fruition for ourselves and for the collective. And so for me personally, yesterday was about holding open the complete spectrum of my cosmic skywalking awareness and bringing all of the allies that come through those filters of light and what we might call the dimensions into bearing in the most appropriate ways. I didn't put any necessarily, direct orders or instructions in that way. I just opened myself up as a channel and said whatever spectrum of beings from whatever dimensions are most appropriate to bring light and healing, whatever else is necessary right now, I offer myself as a vessel for the whole of this day for that energy to come through. And we can all do that. We can all live from that place, not just on the day of our galactic birthdays, every day, right, Bella?
Mm-hmm. I wanted to add a little thing here. So when we follow the 13 moons, that year cycle, which is 364 days or 13 moons of 28 days, we started it also in Teotihuacan last year,
right,
on the 26th of July, which is the year of the storm. And we have just entered now on the 4th of April, the moon of manifestation. Meaning that in these 28 days, we should see the results of the work that has been done regarding time and everything, all the seeds that we have put from that point onwards. And that is exactly what we're starting to see with the move of Venus, with the conjunction with Saturn, with the Liberation Day, with the changes of taxation and tariffs and everything else that is going to impact the rest of the world.
Right, exactly.
Not only to do with financial, but many other things that are connected to that. Many people talking about the 30-moon calendar now.
Right.
So I see the changes manifesting within the next 28 days, 24 days or something.
Right, so I guess in some ways that I'm just going to jump on a couple of slides. In fact, I'm going to have to go back. No, sorry, I'm going to go back to this slide a sec. So with the full moon in Libra happening around 2320, we can see here, in fact, on this chart on the Chiron Cazimi, what we're also doing now is getting this sense of balance. And, you know, it's easy to get super polarized, as Bella was just talking about the tariffs and all of these things. But if you meditate into the the gestalts of what these things are, and I really invite all of you to do that, because what I did and what I saw when I did that was that there was nothing behind any of it. All of these things are actually not what they seem. They are designed to break the system, which for many people is terrifying. But ultimately, with this full moon coming in Libra, the idea is to bring equality and balance to everything. And for some people who maybe have a lot more than other people who don't have much, that's probably quite a horrifying thought. And equally, in the other way, those who don't have much and look at all the people that have a lot, it's also quite a difficult one to swallow. So there is some sort of equality that needs to be brought into this, and that is a big part of the letting go process. From what we can see for all of humanity, is to come to a place where there is equal abundance and wealth for everybody. And, you know, whilst there is still resistance in the collective to that idea, mostly because there are many people still in service to self, that is actually the major sort of obstacles that we need to overcome. So it seems that with this full moon in Libra, with the Chiron Cazimi, it's like it's all going to happen at once. You know, everything all at once is the phrase that's been doing the rounds a little bit recently. And we can see that with the recent announcements, with the stock markets getting their wibbly wobblies, you know, this has happened before. And normally when it's happened before, the guys in control of all of that have been steering us towards their next plan. That's not the case this time, you know. And now, as many people have realized over the last 5 or 6 days, is that there was a setting of something that we are now very much into, and that setting really happened on the integration day 8 of the galactic star during the dragon wave spell. That actually brought us to day 60 of the 100-day process of the dissolution of the veil that Manan and McClear shared with us at the beginning of the Ether Castle. So we are now on day 66, a very important number, as I'm sure many of you can realize. And so today is a day where whatever life force, the frequencies that are attached to those numbers of the sixes, this is the last day where they can really cause any major disturbances. And also it takes us beyond the 2/3 mark. So this next, we can say 34 days is really going to take us up to the full moon in Scorpio. It takes us up to the day before. And that full moon in Scorpio is actually a 3-year delta to when me and Bella first met on the full moon eclipse in Scorpio back in 2022. So there are many loops and deltas coming here, and certainly from our own point of view, many of the energetic aspirations and intentions that we've been working with over these last 3 years, we can now see are coming to a point of culmination with that full moon in Scorpio in May. But we have another 35 days between here and there. And in true 40-day shamanic journeying experiences, the process is 40 days for a reason. And during these, well, it's now 30, it's going to be 34 days, but over these next 34 days, we have to work through all of the stuff that is going to be brought into our awareness with this Chiron Cazimi. It's like kind of being in the Hall of Mirrors, but then the Hall of Mirrors just falling away, a bit like Neptune in that tank of water. And suddenly, for the first time, we'll be able to see beyond the Hall of Mirrors, because whatever is being reflected back at us is the reality rather than what's inside of us. Mm-hmm. Gina, do you have anything to say in response to that, sister?
No, I think you both covered it so beautifully. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, so guys in the chat box, please do put any questions to us. Or comments. Yeah, we know that this is a little awkward and clunky today, and it's a little different from how we do the live calls, but with all of the extra options that we've got available now using the YouTube platform and the open broadcasting software, we can actually be a lot more fancy and pull in a lot more different graphics and different people onto the call. But as always, it's a little bit of a learning curve, and those of us who are a bit more right brain perhaps and not so tech orientated do have to go through a bit of a training process, which in this case is me.
So I do want to share a little bit about the journey of Venus.
Yeah, okay, so Bella's got some notes. I'm going to hand over to her and continue to monitor things in the background.
Yes, and thank you guys for being patient on our first live. We hope to get a little bit more techie moving forward and learn to do this in a better way. But what I wanted to share is to do with the Venus start point, which has been calling me to do a lot more research and to share more. When we talk about the Venus start point, and I highly recommend everybody to go and check where your Venus start point is the one immediately before your date of birth. There are charts on Google you can get, unless you were born within a week of that Venus start point, in which case that is your Venus start point. But when we talk about it, it's the one that gives us a sense of purpose. It has a huge influence on us when we want to reconnect to what is our real purpose, what do we really come to achieve. And I've seen the correlation of the Venus start point and the Mayan glyph, the galactic signature, is a huge correlation. So this is more of what I want to start sharing, especially because for the Mayans, Venus was the most important planet, is the closest to us, and therefore is the one with the highest influence, is the biggest, is the one that is closest to us in size, in proximity, but also it has a huge amount of influence. The light of Venus is very potent on us. And so I wanted to talk about the initiatory journey that started on the 2nd of March of 2025, when Venus started the journey retrograde from 10 degrees of Aries. And then it started to go, and this is not only for females, it's for both males and females. We all have the influence of Venus in our lives. And so we, whether you were aware of it or not, we've been going through this initiatory journey from the 2nd of March. And so you want to know where your 10 degrees of Aries are on your chart, so you can understand which area of your life has been the most impacted by this. But in general, when we talk about the retrograde of Venus, we're always going to be reviewing our relationships, our self-worth, our dreams, and how we want to express our creativity in the world. So when it started the retrograde, then it became invisible around the 10th of March. And then there was the kiss with the sun on the 22nd of March, the big Cassimi moment, and an inferior conjunction. What does that mean? That when they get together at this point, it's a whole new cycle of Venus of 8 years. We start a new star shape. And so because it happened at 2 degrees of Aries, what it's telling us is that it went to that point of 2 degrees to tell us, get ready to be the pioneers. Get ready with courage to be these warriors that are going to move forward, but with full integration of the feminine principles. And when we talk about the feminine principles, then we have to talk about balance and harmony and be able to show our talents, shine with our creativity and everything that we haven't been ready to share because of all the wounds connected to Chiron. Chiron is now telling us, okay, what was the purpose of your wound? Did you learn what you came to learn? Are you ready to integrate the lessons so we can now move forward and show the people how we can actually alchemize and move forward? And this is the perfect wave spell to realize, to have all of those realizations. So then Venus, after that Cassimi on the 22nd, it re-entered Pisces. Then on the 28th, it had a conjunction with Neptune at 29 of Pisces. And then on April the 1st, it continued the conjunction with the North Node. So I feel like Venus went all the way, put her post, what is it called?
Her flag.
Yeah, put the flag in Aries, saying, okay, I'm going to go forward. I'm going to leave my flag here, but first I have to go back and tell everybody what the plan is. And so I feel that's been part of the retrograde process. And so she talked to Neptune, she talked to the North Node, saying, okay, this is the direction we're going. And then on the 3rd of April, it became visible as a morning star. So it's the first kind of rebirth and liberation process. We see her again as a morning star, meaning as a warrior. With full light, and we can see her now just before the sun rises. about 40 minutes before or an hour before. We actually did this. We got up on the, you want to tell them about the 3rd of April? And David is like, there's no way you're going to get up before 5 in the morning to see the morning star. And I did.
Some people in this household are not traditionally known for being great at early rising occasions, but on this one, certainly Bella was up at the crack of dawn ready to go, and we did. We got up, and even though it was cloudy, we were there to do the Great Invocation, which we did again yesterday, actually. To call in that energy of Venus returning from the underworld. And of course, she's still in a bit of a review process. And when we think about planets in retrograde, it also means that some things cannot be fully activated and go forward. In this case, I saw that Graham was asking us about the collapse. Now, the collapse in itself is down to many, many factors. And for any of us who've been tracking crypto and all of these things for a while out there thinking, when is it going to jump? When is it going to happen? Why isn't Bitcoin going down? And why isn't XRP going up? And for those of you who are in that world a little bit, you'll know what we're talking about. But really and truly, the more that we've looked at this over the last couple of months, the more that we can see that there were many reasons why this couldn't go full ahead. So I'm jumping ahead a little bit here. I'm sorry, Bella's got more to share.
I'm going to finish this in a minute. So let me finish the journey of Venus, because I think it's very important. Today we're having the conjunction with Saturn. There is a closest conjunction, even closer, on the 29th of April. But the conjunction starts now, and it's telling us, have you integrated those lessons? Have you integrated them enough so that they can become something that is practical, a practical lesson that where you make changes that are going to change your daily life, where you do things in a more grounded way, especially when it comes to relationships, and you create new structures and new ways of doing things because of this conjunction. So we have from today until about the 29th of this conjunction with Saturn to really integrate and show our mastery. How much of your inner work have you been doing? How can you actually change things for the better of the things that you do, or the way that you have approached relationships, or the patterns that you used to have, and now they can be changed to something that actually benefits you. Part of all of this retro process of Venus is about letting go of things that don't help us anymore, especially in our interactions with people, but also with ourselves and our value. How much are you self-worth, or do you still feel like I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not going to show that part of me, they're going to criticize me, or anything that you're still kind of hiding instead of shining and showing the world, because it could help many people. And the key here is Chiron. Until we deal with these wounds from Chiron, we won't be able to shine. We'll always be feeling vulnerable or trying to hide. Right, so let's finish the journey of Venus. Then the very important moment is on the 12-13 of April, when she goes direct at 24 degrees of Pisces. This is the rebirth process, and this is when we want to be really ready and doing our kind of connection to Venus, saying, I'm ready to go. I've done my rebirth process. She's gone from being an evening star to a morning star, meaning she's coming back with more energy. But she's going to take a few days. I think she goes back into Aries on the 30th of April. And that's when she comes full on to do what she's meant to do. So I highly recommend these next few weeks to finish all the process with Chiron, to finish all the process of reviewing your relationships, to start planning the new beginnings and new way of being. Who do you really want to be from now on? And dare to be so. Wow. Right? So just to finish here, what else does Venus connect us to? To our divine mission. So that's where the Venus star point is really important. To our divine mission, to our dreams, to our purpose, our talents, to appreciate beauty in nature that we have all around us, to show who we truly are. That's the final mission of it. And I think I'm going to leave it there. That's a lot.
Alrighty, thank you, Bella. So before I go on, thank you all the comments in the group. Wonderful to see many of our sisters from New Zealand joining us. Really appreciating the amount of time you guys are showing up for us now. For whatever reason, it's become very important that we're all connected, particularly to our cousins in Australia and New Zealand, who we've been very disconnected with in general, I guess, for most of our lives. We live so far apart. So really appreciating all of you showing up and supporting. And of course, that's largely down to finding ways to communicate better with each other and finding better times. We realise that today at 3 o'clock does suit particularly our sisters in New Zealand a bit better. Perhaps it's a little later for folks in Europe. So appreciating again everyone's understanding as we try to connect a global tribe. But I just want to come back to a couple of points here. So yeah, talking about the collapse, like I just made a couple of notes here. If we think about it logically, if Venus really represents our connection to wealth and abundance, to universal wealth and abundance, that is free and available to all, very much the full moon in Libra, in many ways we can say that energy is there. But also, with Venus being in the underworld and in retrograde motion, it really doesn't make an awful lot of sense to be releasing the new quantum financial system, which is fully constructed. Some of us have been looking at that for probably about 8 or 9 months now. And a lot of other beings in the collective neurosphere, particularly some of the people on the TV, I won't name names, but people who are very much into technological innovations. That software, the Doge software that's running in the background, is actually running on quantum principles. Yes, it has AI in it, but it's also running on different algorithms to different types of AI. And we're going to have to get used to artificial intelligence and how we utilize it. We can see now on YouTube that probably more than 70% of the videos are being completely constructed by AI, even with AI presenters. So, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. It's going to take some time for it to be shapen. But to come back to the Venus point, it's really not a clever idea to release a new wealth abundant system while the being that's responsible for the oversight of that, i.e. in this case, Venus or the goddess, is still doing a journey through the underworld. That doesn't sound like a safe option as I'm saying it right now, but that process has come to an end. So we had the first marker there, but the second one is also, it's not a good idea to give dynamic energy to something that's going backwards. Right, so hence why we have to wait for Venus to go direct on the 12th and 13th to think about how the quantum wealth abundance system is more likely to get propelled forwards quickly. So this is just one particular view. It's not necessarily correct, but when I think about it logically, it makes sense that even though many of us have been waiting for the so-called collapse and new quantum wealth abundance system to kick in, as soon as possible, I suspect in many cases, there is a much bigger process at work that is beyond each of us as individuals. But if we pay attention to what the planets are up to, particularly using the mundane Western astrology, and having had so many conscious beings since that April 8th eclipse last year, working more multidimensionally in service to the all, the more we can have confidence that on the other side of this full moon that there is going to be an outpouring and a flow. But we have 5 days between here and there. And that's really to, I think, answer Graham's question, is what we saw with the initiation of the tariffs is the beginning of the collapse. It's a controlled demolition job, and it's meant to be. Therefore, we shouldn't be scared about it. All we have to do is hold center, hold our boundaries, understand that this is very much a Chiron healing moment for many, many people. And it's also designed to level the playing field so that we can enter into the new Earth timeline as a unified consciousness field where there are no winners and losers. Still very much when I tune into the world of finance, there's still a very strong sense of if you do this, you will be one of the winners. And if you don't, well, you're going to lose or miss out. To me, that doesn't sound like a very fifth dimensional new Earth perspective. It still sounds like some do well and some don't do well. And maybe there might be some rebalancing, but in the future, everybody will have access to the wealth that they need for whatever is in the projects that are in their hearts.
Right. And part of the importance of what we've been doing with the We the Cosmic Humans group, where we went to different sites and connected with the trees, connected with the circles, stone circles and pyramids and all of that, is so that we can infuse what we actually want and have our say in how we decide that the new Earth should look like, which is we bring more freedom, we move forward with purpose and intention, and that should include what do we really want for the highest good of all. That should be always there. And I feel that every time that you connect and you go to those places, since the grid is already in place, let's call it the noosphere or planetary mind or crystalline grid network, either way you want to call it, is all connected to the same. We can actually access it now through pure intentions from our heart, and that is what I want to invite everybody to do now, especially on this wave spell, because there are going to be such news and truths and disclosures that people are going to feel like it's the end of the world, but it's actually the beginning of the new world. But it's going to take a while for people to understand that.
Right, so when we think about the Chiron Kazemi, you know, really what we're doing is freeing ourselves from the illusions. That also includes the illusions of the old capitalist system. And, you know, it's easy to wish for something that we really don't know how does it look. But the most important thing is that even if we want maybe or even perceive that a collapse is necessary, there are many, many other millions of beings involved who are not on the same page or the same frequency that we are. And for those of us that understand what is coming, there is still an importance to understand that there are other beings who've also signed up who haven't done the inner work and are going to have to go through some pretty rapid stuff. Some of us have taken 15 years to get to this place. Some people are going to have maybe 5 days. But the truth is, from what I understand, is that since the integration of the galactic star on day 8 of the last wave spell, that was the moment where all of the threads came to a point, we can say, of culmination. And moving forwards, and I think it's really beautiful that day 12 of this first wave spell is the crystal human, which of course was our sister Hannah's solar return and her galactic birthday. So a really powerful day. But if we think about the essence of the crystal human, to me that speaks of the crystalline human being, the cosmic human being, which comes right before the cosmic skywalker. So let's take this down for a second and come back to the main screen as we head perhaps more into the final part of... Hello there! Hey! We're here.
We're real.
So we didn't want to take too long today, guys. We wanted to just pop some things into your awareness. We'll maybe just take another 5 to 10 minutes now. Please pop questions into the box. We have our good old friend Dandelion supporting us over here, and there we go. Yeah,
there is a delay.
There is a little delay, which is something that we're having to get used to, particularly as I'm watching myself now on 2 screens. One of them is in real time, and the other one is from a few minutes ago. That's super weird. Anyway, all joking aside, you know, with this Chiron Kazemi, we now have the opportunity to see whatever is coming up in our life that's still giving us some level of trauma or perhaps anxiety or fear. And if you have anxiety or fear coming up, then what I would suggest is not to try and push it away even more. So I don't want to look at that. It's too uncomfortable. I don't want to deal with this. Actually, it's to do the opposite and dive into it and then go to your eagle's perch perspective and say, how is this coming up for me now to assist me? That is really the beauty of the eagle's perch, is you always have the opportunity to go and say, even though this is troubling me in 3D, it must be coming to me for a higher purpose because my higher self is allowing it to unfold. What is that higher purpose? Once you get into the mode of doing that with everything that comes up for you, you can cycle stuff through anything super quickly, and you can come to a very balanced place, a very Libran place, we can say, of seeing things from this non-dual perspective. But in order to do that really, really well, we have to see the places, the Buddhists would say, that we have attachments and aversions. That requires a lot of self-reflection and a lot of inwards meditating on the things that perhaps we still have attachments to. And that can be any number of different things. And, you know, sometimes people say, oh, well, it sounds like I'm going to have to get rid of all of my friends and family. And no, that's not the point. When we let go of being attached to something, it doesn't actually mean always that it goes away out of our life. We just have to let go of the perception of how we're connecting to it.
And one of the things that this full moon is going to allow us to do is to have more clarity on what is it we're meant to let go of. I mean, all of those 40 days are meant to do that, but especially on that full moon, it's like, wow, revelation. That relationship doesn't work anymore. I'm ready to move on this path. I'm ready to commit here. I'm ready to close this enterprise, whatever it is regarding connections. There should be more clarity between now and the 12th. Absolutely.
Right, so as the final thoughts for today's live stream, and again, just thank you so much, everybody, for supporting in this. You can see what we're trying to do here, and it will take maybe one or two more attempts to get better at it and just to check out the technology that we need to upgrade things. But all of this is really building on what we've been doing with all of you, not just for the last few years, but particularly the last couple of months, which is to bring this more unified field. And as many people have been experiencing, particularly from the flying school and some of the other courses, that once we get into this mode of elevating our consciousness, it's actually not so difficult to connect in some way to the frequency of our brothers and sisters in our tribe, because we have all of the live calls, and in some cases some of you have done sessions with me and Bella, and when we do those, it's really a soul connection that is happening. And so certainly from my perspective, doing the one-to-ones, and probably Bella would say the same thing, is that we're actually able to meet all of you that we do those sessions with at the soul level, and to see who you are, both by looking at your astrology, talking to you over the Zoom, but also feeling into your mind glyph essence. That, certainly if I go and meditate in the evening and I do some flying school journeys, it's really easy to connect with the energy of all of you, because you're already in the ethers wanting to talk, and that's something as we move forward that A is really exciting, but B suggests that we're already in the first baby steps of becoming multidimensional cosmic humans, which is kind of exciting, right? So over these next 5 days, what we would like to invite all of you to do is to be really strong on your boundaries and not get pulled into other people's dramas. If you have your own dramas going on, to keep going inwards and saying, okay, maybe I need to let go of this, maybe I need to let go of that. And in the end, what you find, speaking from personal experience over these last few years, is every time I've had to let go of something really serious or something big or something that I was overly attached to, what's really weird is that afterwards there's this huge sense of liberation. It's like something just gets removed off my shoulders and I feel lighter. Quite the opposite, sometimes of what you expect. You think your world is about to end and it's going to get worse, and actually energetically what happens is you get released. So whatever that might be, we're not saying that you have to lose all of your finances or lose your house or lose your family unless you really want to. But even then, that's not the point. It's more about how we stay connected, but with much more boundaried relationships with each other. Remember that the whole point of this journey is to be the individuated drops of consciousness in the wider Piscean sea of consciousness. That is really what this has all been about. And as things move forwards, as people lose their stockpile of cash, maybe other things, things that they've been hoarding, the secret is not to get involved in that. Some of those people may have gotten those things in ill-begotten gains. It's not a time to be making judgments about things. It's a time to be holding our center, dealing with what's coming up for us. And if we're in a good space, in a relatively clear place, because we've done most of our inner work, then the trick is really just to be holding that non-dual perspective that Libra actually really offers us on this full moon, and understanding that everyone who is still left here in the game is in the ascension process. Some people are going to ascend beyond their physical bodies and go back to the angelic realms, as the stellar nations have talked about in different ways. And some of us are going to ascend but decide to stay in an ascended state in our 3D bodies. Nobody dies. That's the most important thing. Everyone who is now still here on the planet, and we are understanding that there is a lot less people than perhaps we've been led to believe over the last years, or maybe even in general. It doesn't matter, everything is part of a contract that people signed up for in different ways. And we have to respect that. We can't say, oh, I think that you should be staying because I don't want you to go. And that's not for us to choose. We might be sad that that person is leaving in some way or has already left, but ultimately all they're doing is going back to be reconnected with Great Spirit, which is something that many of us have been missing for eons. So that's a blessing. Some people never contracted to come in and stay to be cosmic humans. That wasn't their journey. They maybe have only had one or two incarnations and don't have the tools inside. Maybe some have had some medications or something that don't allow them to fully go to a cosmic human space. As we move forwards, it's not our place to concern ourselves about those things. All we can do is hold a space for ourselves, for our loved ones if necessary, but again, still in that sovereign and empowered way. And say, as we move forwards, who's on the journey with us? Who's resonating with us? And that's really been a lot of what we've been trying to do with QPW over the last year, is to put out that transmission. Who's resonating with us? Who's on the journey with us? So thankfully we have all of you beautiful people with us. And as we continue to move forwards, that number will grow. But we're in such good shape because we're really the first pioneers on the new earth, boots on the ground. Some of us have been here for a while waiting for others to join us, but as we enter this now kind of final 34 days of this final 40-day vision quest for humanity, which isn't really just humanity, it's Mother Earth. You know, I had a vision just a couple of nights ago where I saw, in many ways, it was a revisiting of what happened to me post the April 8th eclipse last year. But the celestial skyboat that I've talked about, that we all go on this journey together, which was initiated from that April 8th eclipse last year, there was a moment where Yeshua appeared in the sky and he punched a hole down through the artificial field that was surrounding Mother Earth at that point, and in doing so he put his kind of almost like his hand, where he went kind of feet first, which resonated with me a little bit, kind of went feet first in and pulled us out. And initially I saw that as a skyboat, but what I really understood all the way through the journey was the skyboat was Mother Earth ascending. So she has now popped out. The delta for that particular day, looping back to the original journey, was actually yesterday. I couldn't believe it when I looked in my captain's log for that original 40-day journey. I saw the moment when I had the first really profound connection I've had with the Christ consciousness in this incarnation was on exactly the same day, which was yesterday. So I'm like, okay, that means that the old world, the carcass of the old world, the density of the matrix and the structure, that's now falling away, literally, as an empty grayness, we can almost say. And whatever is still attached to that empty grayness will fall with it. That's a choice those intelligences have made. Meanwhile, with the upsurge and the popping out of the celestial skyboat being led by the Christed consciousness energy of Yeshua and Sophia, we are being pulled towards what originally was the Jupiter Cazimi, that was actually 40 days after that Chiron Cazimi back last year. And so in many ways that is represented by another sun gate, and this is the final sun gate that we're probably going to have to pass through, which is the day before the full moon in Scorpio. So the reason we share all of that is just to give you some idea that there is a container, everything is in place, there is nothing that is happening that is going to be untoward, everything is part of a grand design that we have all collectively created and added to.
And I want to add here that this is the wave spell of the White Wizard or the Jaguar energy. And according to stellar nations, those are the guardians of the goddess principle, of the feminine principle, of everything that has to do with freedom. Here is where the journey of Venus and this particular wave spell kind of combine, telling us, okay, this is the opportunity to go into becoming cosmic humans, into becoming who you truly are, into being multidimensional, seeing all the chaos and collapse around you, but being able to be our inner shamans and being able to make it to the other side as pioneers, which is what we're being called to do, not just David and me, all of you guys who are being part of this journey.
Right, and so as we come to the end of the call today, the final thoughts really are that this is a dynamic process. Being passive and waiting for things to happen, whether you're waiting for something on the TV, waiting for somebody to push a magic button that takes some crypto to some beautiful number, that's all putting it outside of us and waiting for it to happen. And it probably will, but it's going to happen because we, the collective, have decided it's the right moment for the wealth redistribution. It's something that we all have a say in, which to me is a much more beautiful idea than hoping that some dude somewhere is going to push a button and a whole bunch of numbers are going to jump. That's just one aspect of this. You know, the same can be said about healthcare. You know, we need to move past the spells of the offered medication so that we can administer real healthcare, quantum plant intelligence healthcare, sound wave technology, many different things, you know. Med beds are something that many people have talked about. Well, some of us are actually walking med beds because of the amount of allies that we have connection to, the rays of light that we have connection to. When we are that clear vessel, that hollow bone, we just open ourselves up and call in the most appropriate beings to come and assist. That's how we're doing the one-to-one sessions with many of you. And in the end, the Davids and Bellas and all of us as 3D beings that we have a personality attached to really are just the front-ending face of a much bigger channel through which other beings can come and do healing work. So in the same way that we're mobile, nodal, free tree points, we can also, by doing the inner work and calling on those healing allies, we can also be mobile med beds for people. Maybe that's something you feel called to do. Maybe it's something you're going to offer a little bit here and there. But the more that we start to think about ourselves in these much more expanded ways, well, the more the Great Spirit can facilitate that. If we're saying, no, I'm a small being, I don't have any abilities, Spirit's going to go, okay, fine, stay that way. So it's your choice. So this is where I really want to, again, urge all of you every day, give a little bit of time to yourself, do a little bit of stellar nations, do a chapter in the navigation guide, have another look at the details from this call or from the quantum compass, have a look at your own charts, take an active participation in your expansion. If you don't want to do it for yourself, nobody else is going to do it, right? And we've been banging this drum for a while, but it's only because we want everybody to be involved in the experience as much as each and every one of you originally signed up for. There are plenty of people in the masses who've got a lot more journey work to do, and that's probably why it's going to take them 35 days to do that. But in these expanded stretches of time that the sun is giving us, many of us are seeing some days fly by, other days seem to be super, super long. That's all just part of the reorientation and recalibration that we're all going through as we get used to universal time. And we've shared this before, if we think about the 1260 calendar being based on taxation, and that's about to be abolished because it's technically illegal, it's not something we should be participating in. What happens when that whole system disappears? Well, we have 1320, we have a universal time code technology, which we can understand. We can even look into the future, looking at the different wave spells, understanding the energy of the dragon, the jaguar, the hand, the warrior. So we have some idea of the energy patterns coming towards us, and then by looking at the astrology we have these fixed anchor points to show us how by this point probably this is going to happen. And because we're using the Western astrology in this way, we can understand, but by the time it comes to the day of the conjunction, it's already a done deal, which is where looking at it 2 or 3 weeks ahead of time or even a little bit further gives us the opportunity to put those intentions in with all of the coordinates that the universal time codes that the mind technology gives us, and of course by studying the stars and the moon and of course the sun. The sun is a big player in all of this too. We understand that everything is all working together. There's nothing random, nothing designed to mess people up or get them out of shape for no good reason. It's all part of the unfolding of the ascension plan. And the more that we get excited about that, the more we can put that excitement and joy and playfulness and creativity into the collective grids, into the Christo grid, the dragon grid, the noosphere. The more that we are beginning to really, really live in a coherent world and hopefully universe, which I think is super exciting.
Yeah. So I think to start wrapping up, unless you guys have any questions, you can post them on the chat box. Thank you for being patient with us with this first live. But the big message is that there will be changes. We are in the birth canal right now. We are the midwives, seeing the new earth being born. And many of your gifts and talents and healing abilities, psychic abilities, and everything that you've gathered along the way, that's why it's so important to know what your real purpose is. Because then that is when we're going to be called to put it to the service of the others. Because the mass awakening is starting to happen. We're seeing the amount of people coming to the different channels, asking the questions, and not believing what they see on the television anymore. So we are going to be way showers. Many of you will be able to share all of those beautiful skills, talents, and gifts that you have. So this is the moment to be courageous and stand in your true self and be able to give from your heart. So everybody get ready, because this is about to get interesting. Even though it looks like it's horrible out there, you name it, from earthquakes to solar flares to banks collapsing to all of those things, remain in your center. We came to do this.
And if you're following your intuition, truly being in the flow, even making decisions that maybe other people might not make, you can never get it wrong. You can never be in the wrong place. You're always in exactly the right place. And, this is where, with the daily extended glyph readings that Bella's giving for this way spell rather than the ones I've been doing for the shorts, I'm going to give myself 13 days off whilst we have these ones here inside the membership. We can start to feel into the incoming energy of the glyph of tomorrow ahead of time. So I'm looking here, and tomorrow is catalyzation day. It's a lunar tone. Day 2 is always a day of challenge. And what do we have tomorrow to assist us in this? We are with the energy of the blue eagle. So this tells me, just from some basic hits, it's like, okay, tomorrow's probably going to be a challenging day. We can see that the collapse is underway. It's only going to accelerate. There is no dodging this one. There's no clever quantitative easing or any other fancy terms that these jokers come up with just basically to shift their funds around. That can't happen anymore. They've all been closed off. So we are now on a set trajectory that cannot be hijacked. It's quantum encrypted, it's blockchained, essentially with quantum technology. And perhaps as a visual, this is something I'd like to share. If we imagine Mother Earth as the skyboat that we're all on, flying through the universe. In fact, many other channels are starting to see this too, which is really cool. People are seeing it in their visions as kind of almost like tunnels with a light at the end of the tunnel. Let's just imagine that tunnel is from this point forwards, a 34-day journey. And as each day goes by, the light at the end of the tunnel gets closer, and each day goes by, 1% of the veil gets removed. So as we're moving through that sort of light tunnel, we can say, towards the promised land, that really is another way of visually thinking about the birth canal. So perhaps that's just something for you all to think about each day, and trust that we are in this process. Some of us have been working on this since the April 8th eclipse last year and have already gone through this process a number of times in other dimensional realms, partly to ensure the success of this particular moment, but also to do a lot of clearing work. Whatever could have happened during these final iterations over this 40-day journey, whatever could have happened that would have been truly unpleasant has already been dealt with last year. That was a very, very strong emphasis from the off-planet beings, particularly the great felines, the Syrian navy of the universe, who are overseeing everything. We are so protected, everybody. We have so much security surrounding the planet and on the planet that whatever small bumps and explosions might happen here and there is nothing truly terrible that is going to happen. So keep following your intuition, trust the plan, as I think somebody once said, read the glyphs as they're incoming and understand. And on a day of challenge, it's probably a day to go Blue Eagle, B5D, and just deal with things in that way.
Let's remind people of, for those of you that have joined the membership, we have released an introductory video so you can follow this wave spell and the glyph for every day. So day by day you get a little reflection, meditation, and affirmation. And so it's an easier way to follow. Those of you that did the Path of the Jaguar should also be able to access it, or you can access it here in the membership. So it's a way of us kind of putting the energy out there of a way to accompany you, help guide through the process, and we'll keep on jumping here as we learn how to do this. It's still a little challenging, but we're learning. So we'll jump more often here on the lives to do this, what we're doing, sharing what we're seeing, getting people like Gina, who is a member of our tribe. Thank you, Gina, we love you. And anybody else who wants to join us from the tribe and has some message or something interesting to share.
Right, so with that in mind, there was something else I was just going to say. So please pay attention to all of the emails we send out, even the little video updates we put out on the main channel and in the groups, because we can't message everybody individually, and we're really asking you to all empower yourselves and follow the thread so that when we do jump on suddenly out of the blue and decide to do an energy update or a live stream, you guys are all on point with it. This is a moment where being centered, being aware, being in the flow, being part of the group, being part of the tribe. There is no tribe without all of you guys, otherwise me and Bella would be just sat here talking to Josh probably on the screen, which wouldn't be half as much fun. And as we move forwards, we want to do more of the things that we did with the dragon activities. We want to see more of our brothers and sisters in 3D. But in all seriousness, we just have to get through this little bit of healing. After the Jaguar wave spell, we have 13 days of the blue hand. So that tells us there's 13 days of healing coming after this transformational process. Just hold all of this stuff in your awareness, guys and gals. That's it. We can only keep showing up in the best ways possible. But, moving forwards, we do want to give more continuous little update videos. Me and Bella do so many amazing deep dives into all kinds of things, which we never really have the time or necessarily energy to share with you all on the Sunday calls. But with this new sort of way of doing things here on YouTube, we can do more of these little bits and pieces, because basically we are the narrators. That's the exciting thing. And we have the universal timeline with the Mayan codes, with the glyphs, we have the astrology. And as some of you have already been realizing over the last few months, we can create the story of how this unfolds. It's going to unfold anyway, but it's a lot more fun if we actively participate in it, both individually with our own stories, but also as a tribe. Because when we come together and share all of our individual stories, like we did with the dragon, wow, we did something huge there, everybody. It's going to continue to resonate for a long time. It would have happened whether we did our part of the job or not, but it would have been a lot more chaotic, I think. So never underestimate what one awakened conscious being can do to the collective space, particularly at this time. And when we think about that, and particularly think about our tribe, imagine what 144 of us can do, 260 of us can do. So I think that's really it. Just have a quick last look through the comments. Thank you everybody for joining. Thank you, Mike. As always, for helping us to hold space. Thank you, Sister Gina, for jumping in and helping us navigate those bits and pieces. I promise next time we do this, we'll actually get your face on camera too. But really, really appreciating that. Gina, do you have anything you wish to say, lovely, as a final thought?
I just wanted to say thank you. This was amazing. Yeah.
Bless you, sister. Thank you so much. And of course, as a final thought, for brothers and sisters, particularly in New Zealand, you are at the vanguard of what is happening here in the time. And I'm just seeing the comments, of course, that some of you are already in day 2 with the challenge of the eagle. So there is something here for us to learn too about how the baton gets passed as the sun comes across the earth, like we did with the dragons. And, brothers and sisters in New Zealand and in Australia, we have our brother from Mexico, Pedro, is holding space in Japan. Can you imagine?
He made it to Japan.
This guy gets
for
everywhere.
The dragon wave
Yeah,
spell.
he's a living Ehekatl spirit, the wind god, and he's in Japan holding space with his own brother there.
Yeah.
So, this is how we all can contribute in different ways, and often just being somewhere on boots on the ground and just being aware of the bigger motifs is all that's needed. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for the beautiful comments. We will continue to update things. Please do check the daily glyphs from Bella. There is also going to be other bits of content that we're going to release. This wave spell with the Jaguar is really the first one we're doing like this. We're not saying they're all going to be the same. Each wave spell will have its own story, and whatever that story is something that we're going to be feeling into as a tribe and telling the story of as a tribe. This is how we tell the story of how we discover New Earth, everybody, and we all have a piece to play in that story. So I'm really inviting you all to keep doing what we've been doing over the last few months. It's been really beautiful. So I think that's it, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you to everybody who joined. Thank you to both of the Ewans, the 2 U-men up in Scotland. Blessings to you both up there. Blessings to all of the sisters too, and everybody else. And of course, we will see you again very, very soon. We might even do another one of these live stream calls as we get better with it, sometime maybe in a week or so's time. But for today, thank you for the support. Thank you, everybody. And please do continue to share, both on the comments, both in the membership and on the main page, and of course in the QPW groups. So
In Lakesh.
in
I'm
Lakesh,
another
everybody.
you.
I am another you, and we'll see you all again very soon. Bye for now.
Bye.